So riddle me this. What does it take for you to ultimately know that you're ready to take your athleticism, to take your life, to take your business to the next level? I'm Kenny Buller, co-host of Second Floor Podcast. And on the show, we talk about how to survive, how to thrive, and keep the good vibes going in life and business. I bring on Muay Moromo, successful serial entrepreneur, professional MMA fighter, and someone who actually went through university to ultimately provide you today the information that you need to know in order to be confident in knowing when you're ready to take that leap. This is for anyone out there who is an amateur athlete or who's considering going pro, or even take everything they've learned and know exactly when is the time to now apply it and be put on the spotlight. This is for someone who's listening who has the side hustle, who is thinking constantly about what do I need to do? What sort of validation do I need to give myself to know that I'm ready to take the leap? What is the mindset I need to have in order to realize that I now know I have what it takes to actually get paid for the services that I'm providing? Muay is someone I respect a lot. He's someone whom I've known in the martial arts community in Edmonton for quite some time, and it is a huge pleasure to bring him on board. Usually I don't meet anyone who has higher energy than me. Today you guys are going to see that, you're going to feel that, and super excited for you to listen. No, that's so true. It's like if you have everything set in stone. Like if you're trying to jump out of a plane that you paid maybe $10 for,
right,
in like this beat up little tiny reserve area, you're doing it wrong. You're already just asking for
the risk is through the roof right there.
But you got the guy who's been it for 30 years.
Right.
You got the F-150 jet plane that's been around. It's reputable.
The whole thing, man. You know what I mean? It's like the guy's got 1,000 jumps and he puts you in the crazy gear and he walks you through it, And sometimes you could just tell something legitimate, right? So it's like, once you do it properly, I think with anything, once you do it properly, it becomes easier. Yeah,
it's like having that, before we officially start. I feel like we're already rolling through. But
rock and rolling, man. Let's go.
I'll give you a story before we officially start.
Yeah.
I won't specifically mention, especially if this ends up going on, because I feel like this is good shit anyway.
Great.
I won't mention who this person is from in case people actually pinpoint the actual person who did this.
Mm-hmm.
But let's just say there's someone in my life who went and jumped out of a plane with like 15 of his buddies.
Right.
So it's a group thing, right? Like, let's all go.
Let's go together.
Let's all go up there. Even more like inclined to do it. There was one buddy who's scared shitless.
Of course there is. There's always one.
He was full on like...
It's probably me, like, fuck. What are we doing here?
So he gets convinced. He was like, yo, man, come on. Don't be a puss. Don't be a wussy. Like, just get your butt over here. So he signs it. He still isn't really on board. He's getting peer pressured. So he's on this thing. He paid like $600 to do it. He's in the plane.
Right.
Everyone's going. He's seeing every single person go.
He's jumping out.
Every single person go.
Yeah.
Comes down to him. And the guy who's like pretty much attached to him at that point.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, you ready to do this thing? And he's like, he looks down.
Yeah.
He's like, no, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And the guy's like, you can't back down now. You're not getting your money back.
You gotta jump. Yeah.
And he goes, no. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. He's like, you got 5 seconds to tell me. I'm giving you one last chance.
Yeah.
He's like, no, I don't want to do it. He goes back. He gets unlashed. Everyone who went down waited like an hour, bro. They're like, where's
the guy? Yeah.
Let's call him Jeffrey.
Yeah.
Where's Jeffrey? Where's Jeffrey? And everyone thought Jeffrey died.
Oh, shit.
Right? Everyone's like, where is he?
Because like, where else could he be?
Can't find him.
Yeah.
So Jeffrey ended up staying on the plane. It went down. Everyone's like looking for him, and then that walk of shame.
Oh man!
Like that. Before walking out, everyone's like, "Are you kidding me? Like you wasted that much money to not go down?
Even just the time, the effort. You know what I mean? See, and I think that's the one thing that scares me more than not doing things is the walk of shame, man.
Yeah,
the walk of shame is scary, dude.
Just do it. Win or
just
lose,
do it. Once you're there, do it. Because I remember there was a cat who I was cornering him for a fight, and he was winning. He's beating the shit out of the other guy. He's winning the fight. But I don't think, just from a lack of experience, he'd never been in a fight where the guy takes his best and doesn't go down. Because he was beating the life out of this guy, and this guy kept taking it and coming back at him.
Wow, yeah.
But he was winning. And at the end of the second round, he sits down in between rounds, and he says, I don't want to fight anymore. And I looked at him, I was like, what the fuck do you mean you don't want to fight anymore? He says, well, I'm done, man.
End of round one?
And round 2, it was a 3-round fight. And he gave up. He gave up on the stool. And even the guy who was fighting was shocked. Like, oh, I just won this.
TKO?
I was like, look at that guy, man. That guy's tired as shit. You know, he's about to break. Like, get on it. You know, yeah. And it's one of those walk of shame moments. It seems like exactly the same thing. You get in there, you go, 80% of the way. And then, that last 20%, you give up on it, and it's a colossal waste, man.
And I find the psychology behind that, the sad truth behind how it's looked upon externally from others, is they're only going to view that in those last final 20 seconds.
Of course.
Just like Jeffrey, who jumped out of the plane. They're not going to be proud and able and content with him going on that plane. They're not even going to remember it. They're not going to remember this guy who fought
no one cares about that part, man.
2 rounds of war. They're just going to look at, you gave up.
Yeah, you gave up. And that's exactly, even himself, like, he was never the same after that. He stopped training, stopped doing everything. It was a wrap, man.
I got cantaloupe, by the way. I'm doing a new thing where I'm just going to start giving fruit.
That's a good call, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a great call.
There you go, buddy. Thank you, man. You get hungry when you talk. You need a little bit of hydration.
Yeah.
What did you have as a drink? What did you ask for again?
When?
Instead of the water, do you have that handy somewhere?
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, there it is.
Trying out the nude vodka. This episode is brought to you by Nude Vodka. I was trying to hide the can, so look, I'm drinking water. But then Kenny over here asked me to pick up the can and talk about it. So here we are.
I already knows.
Yeah.
You know what I love, bro? Let me just make.
I should call you Call Out Kenny. Just calling people out.
Yeah. Muay Moromo, right? I'm saying that correctly?
Yes.
Perfect. So we're rolling in. We're going to start.
It's rock and roll, dude.
I want to just acknowledge you for a second, man. You're the first person where naturally, even just outside of, you and me being acquaintances and just talking and rolling with the punches, literally and figuratively. Of
course.
You're just able to dive in. I haven't been able to do that once with a single guest
Get
yet.
the fuck out.
Yeah, formally I'd have to be like, okay, we're just going to start.
Yeah.
You're the first person where we pretty much started as soon as you sat down on that chair.
Man, shit.
It's fantastic.
Well, it helps that we're great. We have a lot in common, so we can chat. I find a lot of the time it's just that awkwardness of saying, okay, I'm sitting in front of a mic and this guy's about to hit me with some questions. It's like, well, no, dude, you're having a conversation.
Totally. And that's why I wanted to start off by mentioning that there's some commonalities we have.
Thank you, man.
And I find there's 3 things that I know I've experienced, but in a sense you've amplified, and you've done certain things in your life that has brought us into this moment to have a chat, right? So when you look at the education you have,
yes, sir.
When you look at the experience you have as a fighter and what you've done in the world of martial arts, and then when you combine that with your entrepreneurial spirit, guide me through what was something that you...
It's an interesting one, man. Shit. I see why people get nervous when they talk to me. You have some serious questions. No, it's cool. I like it, man. But no, one thing, resilience. I remember growing up, one thing my dad always kind of hammered into me, and it came back to bite him in the ass, was be the best you can be at whatever it is you're doing. And because I remember as a kid, I used to be like, I was a horrible kid, man. Like my dad used to like punish me and beat me up and everything, and it straightened me out.
Wow.
I think more dads and parents need to whip their kids, man. It puts kids in line, man.
Yeah.
Shit. Anyway, back to what we're talking about. He was like, be the best you can be. Doesn't matter what you're doing, And he was like, hypothetically speaking, say if you're a thief and you stole something. There's thieves who steal like $1 million, and there's thieves who steal like $50. They get the same label. This is a thief. Then there's also, like you said, engineers. You could be like an engineer who like does so projects. Or you could be an engineer who does like mega projects. Yeah. Like be the best. Because at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, that's all you have left, whatever it is you're doing. Yeah. So be the best. So it always stuck with me. So all of a sudden, whenever I got into something that I found I was passionate about, I would quite literally eliminate everything else and jump in on that, like laser beam focus almost.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that helped me a lot.
You wouldn't half-ass anything.
No, right? Not really. No. Like I find I do an exploration, so I'll try things. Right, where I'll try them openly, where I don't go into it negatively, because I realized one thing I learned early, because I moved around a lot as a child, was if you go into things negatively and you don't want to do them, they never turn out well, because you go into it with like a negative energy, So it's almost like saying when someone doesn't want to do something and you force them, it always ends up being a headache, because they don't want to. So I realized early on myself, like, listen, sometimes you don't have to want to do what you're about to do, but you can go into it without wanting to or not wanting to. You can just go and explore and say, when this feels wrong, I'll stop. If it feels right, then I'll go. You know?
Wow.
Yeah. So that's one thing I bring in. So I explore, then I do.
Do you find you're a very curious person as far as
Too curious, man.
Yeah?
Yeah, too curious. It gets me in trouble.
Well, when you were, when we chatted and you talked about Muay being in about third, fourth year university and going the academic route, what was it about martial arts at that early 20s in that stage of your life that even sparked interest to you?
It was the challenge. Before martial arts, I'd always viewed it as something children did. Because this was 2005 when I started. So back then, like, the access to information we had compared to now, it's not a long time ago, it's 15 years.
Yeah.
But I mean, the access to information we have now is profound compared to what we had in 2005. And in 2005, martial arts was like something kids did. And if you're an adult doing martial arts, it's like, oh, you're the guy in the karate class. It's like, okay.
Yeah, it wasn't like cool.
So it wasn't cool anymore. You know what I mean?
You're
It's
a
like,
karate kid.
yeah, and that's what everybody did. Like when you talk martial arts back then, it was like, wow.
Are you gonna be karate kid for Halloween?
Yeah, you know what I mean? That's what people did. But it wasn't because they were assholes or anything. They didn't know much about it. And as much as they knew was like either in movies or martial arts was available to kids as like a kind of a self-confidence building and kind of a remedial type of thing. So that was the same approach I had. So when I first actually got into martial arts, it was because my uncle was doing it. And he was doing Kali, like Eskrima, like Filipino martial arts. And the gentleman there is the one who said, you look like a Muay Thai fighter. And I was like, what is Muay Thai?
Yeah.
He says, you ever watch Kickboxer? So I said, I watch Kickboxer, man. Like with Van Damme. He says, yeah, like Tong Po, that was a Muay Thai fighter. Yeah. And because of my ignorance at the time, I was actually like, oh, well, I don't want to do that. Like he lost to Van Damme.
Yeah.
And he goes, no, dude, that's a movie. Like Muay Thai is probably the best striking martial art you can do.
Yeah.
And I was like, no. He says, yeah, man. The only way he got me to do it was because he was like, it's a great workout and you could make it through a workout. And I didn't make it through a workout.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah, man. I didn't make it through a workout. And I was like, what the fuck? I can do any kind of workout.
Yeah.
Because at the time I was an NCAA track and field guy, right? So I was like, I could do any of these workouts, and I didn't make it through, man. I remember it was an hour class and I did like 40 minutes and I was done. And there were guys who like, and you know this yourself, like once guys do martial arts, some of them don't have the best bodies in the world. They're not necessarily like six-packed out, but when they start working, they can work all like hour and a half of a class and just kill it, And so I'm in a class with guys like that. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna kill it. These fools are doing that. I'm gonna kill it.
Look at me, I'm way more jacked than these guys.
But now, like, I'm like, I don't even know how to punch. I look like an idiot. I feel like, oh man, I feel stupid.
It's a different kind of cardio.
It's a different kind of cardio, man. It's a different kind of everything. So I got tired of shit. And all these guys who I thought weren't in as great shape as that, they're killing it. Boom, 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 and they look crisp and clean. I'm like, holy shit, man.
Yeah.
So it grew me up like instantly, and I was like, oh man, there's something here. So obviously I didn't know what there was, but I was like, there's definitely something to this.
What was some of those elements you took from when you were educated? And, well, not obviously you're still educated, but when you were going
Somewhat.
the academic route,
Yeah.
When you were obviously learning how to study, how to actually bring in certain principles of getting that A in class.
Yep.
What were some of those, let's say, skills you took into fighting? Because obviously when you and me spoke, we realized a lot of people, especially during your upbringing, they looked at fighting as the one and only thing that's going to make them that bread.
100%.
Right? There was no alternative.
Yeah.
For you, fighting was the alternative compared to going the academic route.
Right.
And I find that's really neat because for you, Muay Thai, you learned quickly. I feel like far more quicker than one average Joe would learn.
Yeah.
So what were some of those things from school as an academic you learned that you applied directly into fighting to fasten that?
Kind of fast track it? Yeah. So I found when you look at academia, a lot of people, because they never go the full route, don't understand how at the end of the story, so at the end of it all, most of it becomes one thing. So let's say if you do enough biology, when you get to a certain part of biology, you need to know some mathematics in order to do parts of that biology. And that's the same for physics, same for chemistry. You have to know a high level of mathematics. Because I remember doing like chemistry and physics, trying to figure out, for example, the molecular composition of something, and it breaks down into a quadratic equation, and then you break it down that way. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden, if you didn't know a certain level of math, the amount of physics you could do was limited. Same for the chemistry, same for the biology, So in understanding that everything kind of is broken up for us at the beginning so that we can understand it, and learn the fundamental building blocks.
Yes.
And then they meet up at the top. I was like, okay, so there's a way of breaking things down to make them digestible and learn them quickly. I understood that from like academia. So when I experienced martial arts, instead of trying to feel like overwhelmed and everything, I was like, okay, what is the quickest way to the top of the mountain with this? You know what I mean? And looking at it, I was like, okay, so all it is a number of sequences. So you say it's a jab and a cross and a hook and an uppercut, from either side.
And that's adding, subtracting.
Yeah, exactly.
Multiplying.
Yeah. So it's the same context. So as soon as you take, for example, your punches and you turn them into like elements, and for me it was numbers because I was a big math guy. It was like, okay, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and even in the class, that's what they called it, 1, 2, 3. So they call them out as numbers, and that's why I first made the connection. I was like, oh, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's only 6 of these, and then they go to the head of the body, and that makes 12. Okay, that's simple enough. And same thing with kicks. All of a sudden, because the Muay Thai is very direct, you had your straight kicks, so your teeps, roundhouse kicks, which are more, and then your knees. And that was pretty much the bulk of what you use, because Thai boxing doesn't do a lot of the turning, jumping kicks, or any of that. Exactly. So all of a sudden, I was like, okay, so I have 6 things up top and 6 things down bottom, and all of them also apply like top and bottom. So you can hit the head and you can hit the body with those things. So really, I've got 24 things I can work with. You know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. So I was like, okay, well, if you have 24 numbers, because our mathematical system only has 10 numbers, 0 to 9. So I was like, fuck, I got 24. So I was thinking like that. So I was like, it's endless what you can do with it. So already I was like, this is crazy. So in treating like math, I was able to put it together a lot quicker and understand the openness of it, just by understanding math, if that makes any sense.
Oh, big time.
Yeah, so I turned into like a mathematical situation versus a Muay Thai situation because I didn't understand Muay Thai. So as soon as I likened it to math, because I'd done so much math from the time I was a kid, it was so simple.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now it was just a matter of repetition.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I find, wow, that's so beautifully explained.
Yeah, it was just a matter of repetition, yeah.
When you look at the system of university, you can start, based off of what you said, appreciate why they build it in a way where the first 2 years you learn a little bit of broad knowledge.
Everything,
right?
yeah.
You get your electives in, you get your social sciences in, regardless of what you're doing.
Yep.
You get to know who you are a little bit through the courses.
You figure it out.
However, fundamentally, you learn the basics to then declare what your major is going to be.
Right.
And when you relate that to fighting, same way, when you get the guy that comes in day one, and he goes, hey, Muay, I wanna spar. What's the first question you ask someone when you just saw them? They're green, they're fresh.
Yeah.
Say, I want to be the sparring class. What do you ask them or tell them?
I usually ask them, do you have any experience?
Yeah, exactly.
Have you done this before?
Right.
Like what makes you think you actually want to spar?
100%. And then from experience, hey, you know what? Why don't you just come to the beginner class?
Yeah, come in and try.
Who knows? You say you have a couple years of experience, or it's undeclared. I don't see anything on your resume.
Right.
I look you up. I can't find you anywhere.
Well said. Most people don't have a resume.
Exactly. And a resume essentially is the notches in which you're fighting. Right.
That's how much experience do you actually have? Well said.
Yeah. So then now when you look at that person, you can then go, you know what, man? Hold your horses. No problem. Because last thing you want is for them to get hurt and then never come. Right? There's that business aspect of it.
Yeah, not even business, just for them. Some people, they don't know. Like, some people have had little street fights and scuffles, and they think it's the same. And it's like, well, no, dude. Like, when a guy who knows how to put their body behind that thing and hits you with it.
Totally.
That's different, man.
100%, man.
Yeah.
And, that's why I find it's so neat to see how someone such as yourself, because I don't see it a lot, right? Like, I see someone like KB who does have the academic background. You yourself, there's other fighters, I'm sure, but just in my inner circle and in Edmonton, you stand out that way. And it's why you mentioned it so beautifully.
Thank you, man.
For any fighter, any person listening, I just recommend that they understand if they do know the basics, if they show that they know the basics.
100%, man.
Right? Did you earn your stripe to then get into that advanced striking class?
Yeah, and take it at that high level.
Yeah, and then, hey, once you checked off sparring, okay, that's step one. You predetermined all the things you need to get there. Now, okay, what is it going to take to actually fight?
Actually get in and bang it out. That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
It's crazy, man.
Yeah,
so
man.
When you look at fighting as your bridge that kind of drew your academic experience to what you're doing now at Edmonton Combat League.
Right.
What was it that bridge fighting did for you to now be able to run one of the most successful Muay Thai events in Canada?
What was interesting about that was I always thought it was separate, to go. It was is going to be a completely different thing when I get into business. Because again, I had no entrepreneurial experience. So it was like, let's figure this out.
Yeah.
But the same approach, right? Because now it's like I had martial arts background and academic knowledge to deal with. So now instead of having just one language I kind of formally speak, because I think about those things as languages as well. So to me, like math is a language, English is a language, physics is a language.
That's cool.
So I think so I was like, okay, I can speak martial arts, and I speak Muay Thai the best, but I can also speak some Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, some wrestling, some boxing.
I love that.
Yeah, I mean?
That's a nice way of looking at it.
Yeah, I can speak all
How
of that.
fluent are you in wrestling?
Exactly, because it's ultimately just a language.
It
But
is.
It's an unspoken language. It's like a party language.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
if I say to you, can you go, double underhook and then drive
Yes.
over, get the double hooks, and
Yes.
then, then you're like, I see it. But if you
see
don't,
it. If you don't know,
you gotta practice.
Boom, exactly. So
Yeah.
yes, I'm
Totally.
glad you put that in there, man. So it's a language. So I was like, okay, I have all this and I have all that. How can I put it together? And I realized again, it was the same thing. There's certain components that make a business versus just a passion. So a passion is usually when you see it a lot in businesses at the beginning, where someone will go, man, I think I'm great at this thing. And you go, wow, how do I turn it into a business? And usually they just say, well, I'm going to charge people some money to give it to them. And you go, well, that's not really a business. That's providing a service, which is good. That's a good start. But that's not a business. Like a business is like how you provide that service. How do you facilitate the provision of that service? That's the business. And a lot of people that's the one thing I had to figure out right off the bat was like, okay, what is actually a business versus being a service provider? And that was the toughest bridge to kind of overcome, because let's bring it down to martial arts terms now. It's like saying, what's the difference between a martial artist and a professional fighter?
Yeah.
Professional fighters don't need to know all kinds of martial arts. They need to know enough martial arts to not get themselves hurt, and then make it from point A to point B of a fight. That's why you notice some of the UFC champions may not be, if you put them in a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu match, they may not be the best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy.
Yeah.
And you put them in a straight Muay Thai fight, they may not be the best Muay Thai guy. If you put them in a straight boxing fight, a number of separate martial arts, they're not the best at them, but they're great at combining them in a way that works to the point of being able to defeat any one of those specialists in an open combat situation.
And that's exactly the word I was
Right.
thinking, is like they are the MMA fighters, professionals, are
Oh,
the
yeah, man.
kingpin of generalists.
100%,
who
man.
generalized all of it to mix
Yeah,
it
man.
together to ultimately get their hand raised.
Yeah.
Compared to someone who's
that's
just
ultimately what it is.
specialized in
Yeah.
something.
And that's what taught me like how to create a great business was you don't have to specialize in being a service provider. You have to know a number of different elements that create a business. Then once you create the system, then you replace yourself in those specific elements with people who actually are masters of that. So for example, I'm not great at accounting, but I can do enough accounting to say when I get a great accountant to come into my business and he does my books every year, which is the point I'm at from 2 years ago. Now that guy can just take that and it's not going to overwhelm me and go, what, he's going to go, okay, so you've got this in order. This is your business. This is your personal. He just works with it. Now, he takes it to a new level that I can't do. And he starts giving me income statements and all this, but now it's like I knew enough to create the business with those little pillars. So that's what it taught me. Like, okay, a business requires a number of different pillars to support it. And then you provide your service through those pillars. You know what I mean? Like, how do you, and then once you provide that service, you become a master of it to understand enough of what's happening within your business. So for example, if you're looking at the bookkeeping, you may not understand all of it, but you can make sense of it to go, these numbers don't add up. Or if you're looking at the administrative side of things, you say, well, I'm looking at my analytics here, and for the amount of traffic we're getting on our website and what our closing ratio is, we should be doing more. Yep. So where's the breaking point here? Yeah. But that way, then you can talk to a professional that goes, oh, yeah. And then he can give you an answer, and then he can do what he does with it. You know what I mean? So that's what I realized from martial arts to business was like, it's the same principles, just a different application of them.
And it's crazy. It was so well said. It was so well said because the entire time you were saying that, Muay, I kept thinking of, imagine we replace the word business owner with the professional MMA fighter.
Yeah.
It still applies.
It still applies.
You took you being the one who was in the cage and who was fighting and who was throwing these wild elbows, knocking people out, left, right, and center, right?
Oh.
You took that And you applied that in, okay, well now, hey, I'm still the fighter. I'm still a fighter, but it's in the realm of business. And there's all of these specialists behind me. My team. Right? My
100%.
wrestling coach, my jiu-jitsu coach, my accountant, my marketing strategist. There's all of these certain people where I can rely on.
Exactly the same. Yeah.
Right? It's
well said, man. Well said. I'm glad you're able to pick up on it because that's the same thing. Like your wrestling coach is the same as your marketing guy.
I love that.
You know, your striking coach is the same as your accountant.
Yep.
You know, your boxing guy is the same as your personal assistant who does all your meet. You know, it's all the same stuff. It's just you have to repurpose it into a different box or category, like, you know what I mean, to a different name, but it's the same stuff.
And you know, when you're saying all this, man, it reminds me so much of again, I just love this quote. I've probably already said it on the show, but it resonates so much again with what you say. Is when Steve Jobs says that in the creation of Apple and in its existence of getting to where it so successfully is today, Steve Jobs had everything in his mind in terms of where the vision's going, what it's going to look like. He essentially, when it came to building this, he wasn't a part of the show. He wasn't playing an instrument.
Right.
He was orchestrating.
Right. He was the conductor.
The entire production.
Yeah.
He was one leading it. I mean, he had the person with the cello who's amazing at it, did it for years.
Right.
The UX designer. He had the other individual, right? Again, the accountant who's just a book nerd at the end of the day. Who just loves numbers.
They knew exactly what to do. But
again, he just knew how to piece it all together. And I see how for you, it's a blessing in disguise because you've done that with your physicality and with the mindset of a fighter. And now you're doing it in business.
100%, man. 100%. And it was not to take all the credit because it was a lot of mentorship that helped me with that. Because how I made because sometimes you see things but you don't understand them fully. How I put the two together was I was sitting with a mentor of mine, Ken Franchak. His name is Kenny too.
Nice. Hey,
there's a lot of good Kennys. Kenny. So we were sitting with him. I remember I was sitting in his office. And he was giving me a hard time because, like I said, sometimes I don't listen. So I was being a bit of a dick. And he sat me down and he's like, what do you think I do in my office all day? You know? And I was like, I don't know, man. Like, fuck, you're a business guy. Dude, you guys just fuck around. You know, it's like, dude, like, business. Decisions. Yeah, exactly. But he's like, dude, it's like fighting. Do you know how many times I take the figurative fucking hook or the cross or the uppercut off the jaw and I got to get my shit together and stay in the game? Like, it happens a lot in business. It's not a physical blow, but it's a blow nonetheless. And I was like, actually kind of makes sense, you know? So I kind of stopped my joking nonsense because I'm a jovial guy. I like to joke around. But I was like, whoa, wait a minute, this is a nugget. So I kind of sat down and listened. He was like, listen, business and fighting are exactly the same. Now, the difference is some people have fight experience that they could turn into business experience like you do. Some people don't. They got to learn the hard way. Like, some business people get in business without fight experience and they get in a fight and they don't make it. You know, because they don't have the resilience. It's like, dude, I take fucking punches off the dome every day, kicks, like, but they're not figurative kicks. It's literal. Like, sometimes someone will just say, I can't pay you this month, and they don't pay you. But someone who just quit this month, they just quit. That's a punch. That's like getting hammered and you're woozy, you know, and you've got a job that needs to get done, and the guy's gone. You just quit. Or some people won't show up for work, and they're not productive, and you got to deal with them. Because you're still paying them because they sit there for 8 hours, they don't do shit. And you got to pay them according to law, but you got to figure out how to. So I was like, oh man, that makes so much sense. He goes, yeah, man, I take punches off the jaw all day in here. You know, I was like, oh shit. So it helped me get in track. And then that's when I kind of expanded on that. This gentleman is right. You know what I mean? This is a fight. It's not a physical fight where I'm going into boardrooms and like getting into fist fights with people to get business. But you got to go in there, stand your ground, be able to, you know, counter whatever questions there. Because really at the end of the day, I realized in business, most times it seems hostile because you're not used to it. But if I'm trying to provide a service for you and you're asking me questions, we get into it's almost like a fight, but it's not like a street fight where there's malice intent. It's almost like, okay, I need to figure out if you can actually do what I need you to do. So I'll go, okay, well, you know, what are the KPIs and what you're talking about, and how can I, you know, and if you don't know certain things, it's like, well, I can't work with this. He doesn't know what KPIs are.
KPI, you know what I mean? Being key performance indicator.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, he knows what he's talking about. You know what I mean? But if you're having a conversation, you can't articulate to someone what those things are and how you're going to use those to make sure his business goes to the next level, and how you're going to take that information and repackage and re-roll it to make sure this goes that way, and then they won't work with you. That's a fight of sorts. Because there's some people who know how to do all those things. They can fight, theoretically, but they haven't practiced doing it, so they can't effectively articulate it to someone they want to sell the service to, an actual fight. So the difference between sparring and fighting. and they don't get the job. But if you ask them how to do it theoretically, they say, yeah, take this, put it here, do this with it, do that, and you get this result. But they can't explain it. So I realized it is just like a fight. I have to train. If I'm trying to sell something, I need to train my selling stuff. If I'm trying to do this other thing, I got to train how to do this other thing. If I'm trying to do graphic design, I got to train how to graphic design. So it was exactly like a fight for me. I was like, oh yeah, I got to train. I got to focus. I got to figure out where I suck and fix it. I need a coach for this. I need a coach for that.
Wow, that's mind blowing.
Yeah, man.
Especially that
it's all
last
a big
little
fight.
bit. You read my mind. You're obviously really good at articulating things. I'll give you huge credit for that.
I try. Thank you.
Yeah,
I blame it on school.
Yeah, exactly. Got to begin the story, have a little bit of a climax, and end it beautifully. But when you word it like that, Muay Thai, it leads me to believe that you got to get your reps in. Mm-hmm. Myself and Omid, we talk about that a lot, and even as people who've been athletes and who've competed, we get that. 100%. I mean, how do you expect to switch gears in a fight when you realize that your striking's not going to work and you're going to have to take this guy down?
Right.
It's not going to happen unless you drill the double leg takedown several times. Just like in your business experience, right? Where you're only going to be able to do something and make certain decisions if you've done, let's say, the necessary practice beforehand multiple times,
effectively,
right? That's where you could rely on.
That's where you get it, yeah.
And hence why you have certain executives who put in the time,
yep.
right? Like when you get someone, and I find it kind of associates, going a little bit off a tangent here, yep. with, let's say, the price of your product, right? Or the price of someone sitting down with you, let's say, from a consulting realm.
Like your services, yeah.
And someone says, I want to pick your brain. How much does it cost to sit down with you for an hour
yep.
based off of the success you've made in your life? I want to emulate that in mine. And you go, you know what? And this is, obviously, I'm nowhere near this, but let's say eventually, like someone like Gary Vee,
yeah,
they go $1,000 an hour. Video chat, you get one-on-one time with me.
Yep.
Obviously, when someone such as Gary Vee, let's say in the UFC realm, that's like the GSP
of
business.
Yeah,
right?
He is the GSP.
Anyone else would be like, oh man, like, yeah, okay, it's worth it. But why it's worth it? Because you've seen that person do what they do so successfully 1,000 times over.
Yep.
But then underneath that success, it's what they did even previous to being successful in it. Right? Exactly. It's all the times they weren't put on the spotlight.
Yep.
It's what happens, as one of my good friends, Karam Sultan, he says this all the time. And he has a whole platform surrounding it in the dark athletics.
Yeah.
And he talks about it, and I love it. He lives by this, where it's like, it's not what you do in the light. It's what you do in the dark.
Oh, in the dark, man, 100%.
Right? And his In the Dark Athletics, again, frames that. Shout out to him. Definitely check it out for anyone listening.
I'm going to check it out. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, but again, that mindset, right? Like what you do, and to just bring it back to how you worded that. And how people need to understand, right? Like even for me, I listen to that and I'm like, yeah, man, like I gotta stop getting so carried away with like trying to be a champion in business. Like trying to wear like my middleweight championship belt in business. Like that shit takes time.
Takes a lot of time, man.
I gotta get my reps in.
You gotta get the work in. You know, you gotta. I think the problem is, business is an actual, like quite literally and figuratively, is a competition and a fight.
Yeah.
And when you start looking at like books like Art of War and all these other things, they're actually business manuals if you want to look at them accurately, because a lot of the time those principles of war are exactly the same principles of business. Don't get in over your head. Don't do things that you don't understand. You know, if you haven't correctly figured out how to actually win, don't start. You know, like just because Art of War will say, for example, if you don't know how to win, you're going to win half the time, you're going to lose half the time. So why we bother fighting when you've got 50-50 odds? Those are terrible odds.
Gambling your life.
You're gambling, you know? And it's like, I was like, oh, that makes total sense. And even in fighting, you know, because I remember telling my students, I always tell my students, listen, you can waste your time doing things or you can do things that you know work. But the problem is a lot of people don't understand that knowing something works and making it work are two different things. And the missing part, like you talked about, is the application and the practice. Because you could say to a guy, and even people... you see it when people are talking about watching a UFC fight, for example. They'll go, why isn't he getting up? I would just get up. And you say, well, it's not that easy to get up. You know what I mean? Like to you in your mind, you think, oh, this guy's on top of me and punching me.
The
I'm going to stand up.
Yeah.
And you say, well, it's not that easy. Like he's trying to get up. Like he's not an idiot. He's not laying there saying, what do I do, and getting punched in the face. He's like, how do I get up? And when he makes an attempt to get up, the guy stops him. Yeah. You know, so the guy is doing multiple things at one time and the other guy's doing multiple things at one time. Now, the difference between getting up and not getting up in a fight situation is if you know more wrestling than the other guy, or you know enough wrestling to keep up with the movements. You know, get the underhook, do this, do that, scoot your butt out, scoot your left, scoot right. And it's all a movement, and you counter each other until you stand up or you don't stand up. Yeah. Same thing in business. It's like if you're trying to get the sell, you got to outwork the other guy, and not outwork him in a negative way, but you have to be able to get him satisfied with what you're trying to sell him, and that you can do it. That's the same thing as trying to get up in a fight, right? Because if you don't think I can do it, but you think I can, but you're like, I'm not sure if he can do it. His resume says he can. His work record says he kind of can 50% of the time, because looking at what he does, 50% of the time he delivers, the other 50 he kind of delivers. Now, I'm jumping into the major leagues with this guy. I'm going to give him, let's say, $10,000 for this project. I don't want to give him $10,000 if he kind of can deliver. I need him to deliver. Yeah. You know, so it becomes like the get up part in the MMA. The guy's on top of you and he's going, I don't think we can do this. And you got to like, I think I can't do this, and stand up and you convince the guy.
Prove him wrong.
Prove him wrong. And it's the same thing, because a lot of people I've found know their stuff theoretically. They just can't stand up to the test, stand up to the challenge, right? Because like you said, and you made a great example when you talked about knowing and not knowing. Most people I found in a fight situation, and this translated to business in such a profound way, they'll be in a fight situation, right? They're banging it out. Someone will punch them with like a right cross, for example. Boom. And people will go, oh, he punched him with the right cross. Maybe he needs to avoid the right cross. And you go, well, does he know how to avoid a right cross if it's set up a number of different ways? Yeah. Maybe not. He knows how to avoid a flush right cross by itself. Oh, slip to the side, block, whatever. But if the guy double jabs, hooks, and then right cross, or fakes the teep, or teeps him and then right cross, fakes the teep and Superman punches to the right cross, who knows if he can defend all those things?
All sorts of different
It's all sorts of different things to do a right cross. So if you have a guy who knows how to set up a right cross a million different ways, but then he's got a monster right cross, he's going to nail you with it. But if you've practiced how to defend the right cross 4 different ways instead of as many as he knows how to deliver, you're going to be in trouble. You know, turn it over on his head, put it into business. If you only know one way to sell your product, what happens when that one way doesn't work?
Yeah, that's true.
You're not going to sell your product.
That's why they have 100 ways of how to deal with rejection. Like,
yeah, you have
like
to have a bunch of them.
One.
It's not one. So it's the same thing. If you've trained enough techniques to avoid this punch and block that punch and avoid that one, it's the same thing, you know. Oh, I don't know if you can do this, man. Can you sell this much stuff? Yes, I have. Here's my thing from this other gig. Here's the thing from this other contract. And I drew up this little model to show you how I can sell your things, because I looked at your business and this is your website. I looked at this other website and it told me this is how much traffic you get. And I looked at how much sales you get. So it looks like you converted about 40%. And you go, oh, we're actually 35. Okay, 35. That's not bad. We can work with that. And if I get you this much traffic and we convert it 35%, it means I could get you $60,000 and you give me that 10.
Yeah. See, and I love that you're mentioning that, because again, from a business owner's perspective, I hope people understand by listening to this that you have to build your case, right? If I'm going to you and I'm saying, hey, I want to do this for you.
Yeah.
I feel like I am able to get, let's say, the number of guests to show up at the next Edmonton Combat League.
Yep.
I'm able to double that.
I could double.
And you're like, okay, it's all fun and games. You get it. It's all fun and games. Just say it.
Yeah.
How are you going to do it? Have you done it before?
Exactly.
Right? And then, you know, for anyone listening, and this is huge for me, I made that mistake before, just saying it.
Yeah.
Right? And then now it's just a matter of, okay, well, earn your stripes. Right? Let's do it once or twice, maybe for free. Let's just go do it for someone.
Free work,
Let's
man.
do a nice testimonial.
People are afraid of free work, man. Do some free work, man, to get you busy.
And then from there, you now have something. You have something tangible.
Yeah.
Like, listen, I did it. You let me know what you think. And at the same time, outside of all of that, I think another thing that is just unstepped territory we haven't talked about yet is the relationship.
100%,
right?
Man.
And we know this. This is big. I mean, we could talk politics all day, but there's certain people, even in the martial arts world, where they're going to do one-on-ones even for free. And they have this like years of depth of knowledge
100%.
and experience. But they're only going to give it to people who they care about, because they see that there's a relationship there.
Big time.
Right? And if you want to go the route of relationships or anything else, I'm very open for you expressing this. For the person listening, because obviously our audience is a lot of people who are mainly in the category of business and they want to turn that side hustle into a business one day.
Yeah, they want to get busy with it.
What are some things you feel like they can do to kind of continue practicing to ultimately monetize their passion? You know, what is something that you find they can work on that's considered practice that needs to get done?
Yep.
For them to then be like, oh man, I did that. I listened to that. I listened to what Muay Thai said, and I'm going to pay for it.
Fuck yeah. Well, the biggest thing is learning how to provide your service. I think a lot of people have forgotten that, like you said, you got to do your reps and you got to learn. So what they want to do is they want to actually start getting paid off the hop, right? Which is tricky because, sure, you got to make a living and earn some money, but you have to provide a valuable service as well. That's the difference, right? Because now if you're saying, for example, and this is what a lot of people do. A lot of people will go, I own a camera. All my friends say I take pretty good pictures. So I'm going to start a photography business. I'm going to Google a bunch of photographers, hit them up, see what they charge for photos, and then charge the same thing. It's like, well, you're looking at people who are probably professionals who've been doing it for the last 5 to 10 years, and they've worked their way up from doing it for next to nothing to doing it for $1,500 a session or $3,000 a wedding or whatever it is. So you can't start there because you're starting at the level of a master. You're not a master yet, you know? So a lot of people, and then they get offended and they go, well, you pay this photographer. And so that photographer's got an entire online portfolio. He showed up with like him and an assistant. You know what I mean? He had the lights. He had his own studio. He had all this stuff. Like you showing up with your little DSLR and like 2 lenses, and you want me to give
iPhone
you
X.
yeah, and you want me to give you $1,500 for like 2 hours of photography? Like I don't know. I'm not convinced you can deliver. You know, so I think a lot of people are afraid to actually go and master their craft before they sell it. To say, if you think you're a good photographer, why don't you round up a bunch of friends and family, take a bunch of pictures of them at a really high quality, you know, what you think you would be putting out into the market. Once you've done that, then you say, listen, if you know anybody who wants this service, once you've done it and you cleaned it up, tell them I do this, you know, and I'll do it for them for, you know, you figure out what your time is worth. And I think a lot of people haven't figured out what their time is worth.
Yeah.
You know, and they want to charge, again, what the standard, the industry standard is. Like, well, you can't charge industry standard. You're not at that level yet. What is your time worth? So if it takes you 4 hours to do a photo shoot and then another 6 hours to develop these things, what is an hour of your time worth today?
Love that.
In that area, in that arena. Not as you can't say I'm a lawyer and I make X amount, so I'm gonna pick up a camera and make the same. It's different. Like your actual time that you spend doing this other thing. What is it worth? And once you figure out what it's worth, then charge that. You know, to say if you're an amateur photographer, you should probably figure out what amateur photographers charge. You know, not what professionals charge, which is next to nothing. They charge next to. So you should start at next to nothing until your work reflects the quality you want to do. So the biggest piece of advice I would give is say go practice your craft for free, because if you become great at doing something for free, when you monetize it, you become even better and more motivated at it because you're getting paid. You know, and I learned that lesson from martial arts, because I realized the best martial artists and boxers and everything, they go through an intense amateur career, which is all free work.
Yeah. Now you're not doing anything to get paid.
Yeah. Like, let's say Lomachenko, he's got hundreds of fights as an amateur. He didn't get paid for those. Now, when you translate to his professional career, you'll probably do a fraction. He'll probably do, let's say, 60 or 70 fights as a professional. But he's going to get paid profound money because he made that amateur investment. And that's what people aren't willing to do, is to work for free in a controlled environment where they won't get hurt and they won't get beat up and they don't run the risk of developing a negative opinion or getting, you know, kicked out of the market. Because guess what? Once you start charging masterful money, you're going to have to deliver masterful results. And that's how a lot of people get washed out of business, because they show up and they say, well, all the other photographers are charging $1,500. I'm going to charge $1,500 as well. Somebody believes you, pays you $1,500. They get like $300 worth of work because that's where your level is at. And then they go, this guy sucks. And then you call it a negative review, but it's just someone who hasn't mastered their art and cleaned up their craft yet. Right? So do the free work, be an amateur. Once you've gone through the amateur, become a contender. Once you're a contender, become a competitor. Once you're a competitor, become a champion, start charging. Yeah.
Associate, let's say, that hidden title that you're able to give yourself at the moment, and know what you're kind of bumping yourself up to.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
This
what you're working
incremental
towards.
improvement you're making to
100%, brother.
Right?
Yeah.
I find there's a lot of people in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Like even for us, when we would just try and quantify the amount of time it took Muay to do a podcast. And not just do is just, hey, we're here talking for about an hour, but then outside of that, it's okay, well, now what are we going to do to put it out there? The time we spend in editing, the time we spend in creating promotions. What's nice is in the beginning, from a business standpoint, that took far longer initially than how much time it takes now.
100%.
So again, to kind of bring it back to what you're saying is for a photographer, if it's taken them 10 hours to edit, and again, they're doing this day after day after day, and then maybe as the time goes on, that time lessens. They're still kind of confused. They don't know, you know, what their pricing should be. They don't know if they should even price yet. I think, just to add to what you said, they should then again look back at how long it's taking,
right,
and realize that, wow, what took me 10 hours before
at the beginning,
to
right,
edit photos, give it to my let's say client, and have them be satisfied with it, now takes me 3 hours.
Right.
Then when you realize that you've chopped all your time off in that short of time to not only provide that service, but do it better than you did
Right.
before,
100%.
now you know you elevated.
Yes.
Now you know, okay, wow. Right? Same thing for a fighter,
I'm
right?
good.
I love
It's
it.
the same stuff.
We'll bring it back,
Yeah,
right?
it's
You're
the same
doing
stuff.
5 rounds, right? You got coach in the inspiring me like, all right, guys, glove up, shin guards on, headgear. We're going to do 5 5s today.
Yeah.
And you're just like, uh-oh. Like you're scared, right? Like maybe the
course.
first time you've ever done it.
Yeah.
And you're gassed, right? You're in the shower, you're crying.
You're
I remember I was
tired.
like,
It all hurts.
I was
Yeah.
16,
It
like
all
sparring
hurts.
with
Yeah, you got beat up.
Mike Scarcello,
grown
Stephen
men.
Poma, right?
Yeah.
KB. And I was
Yeah,
like,
those
I don't
guys
want
are
to
killers,
do
dude.
I don't want to do this anymore, right?
Yeah.
You'll cry in the shower, but
Yeah.
then guess what? That's your moment to be like, yeah, I gotta get back in there.
Mm-hmm.
When you keep doing it,
Keep doing it, man.
then
Get back
one
in
day
there.
You'll do 5 5s and you'll be like, whew,
Yeah.
I'm ready for another
Yeah.
one.
And you keep up with the masters. You may not beat them up, but they're not beating you up anymore.
Yeah, and that's when you know you're ready.
That's when you know you're ready. Exactly. Well said, brother. That's
awesome,
that's
man.
exactly it, man.
I love that.
Yeah.
I wanna ask you. You know, it's important to me because I'm very curious about it. Like this is a personal curiosity I have.
All right.
Is you get a lot of people in, again, business and martial arts, where they have their team.
Mhm.
They have their core, however many people, right? Head coach, striking coach, wrestling, whatever it is.
Right.
And then they're ready to like make it to the UFC.
Yeah.
And then you'll get people who'll say, "Oh man, like, okay, is you ready to now go into, let's say, a different gym, a bigger gym?
bigger
Are
gym,
you ready
yeah.
to build and revamp your team?
Yeah.
Or are you still going to stick with the people who are with you?"
Right.
Where are you on with that? Even in business where it's like you feel like you need to like find a new mentor, or like you're going into a new, like talking about what we did where you've elevated, you're at that step now.
Right.
Do you need to rebuild your team, or can you still see success and still being with the same team? Like it's a very debatable topic.
It's debatable.
I just want to know
It's
where
debatable.
you personally
Yeah,
stand.
yeah. In my opinion, I'd say it's a mixture of both. You need a great team that can keep you sharp, and then once you get to a certain level, you need another team if you don't have it. Because sometimes you have it where you are. And if you don't have it, you need another team that'll get you ready for the kind of battle you're getting in. So when I say that, it's like if you find you have a great striking gym, there's no need to go and change that for a fight against a striker.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You do the same things, but you augment the necessary facets. Okay, make sure your ground game is tight, because maybe this guy might want to strike and bang, and then if he can't beat me with the hands, he's going to try and take me down, which is a great strategy. So I need to make sure my ground game is still nice.
Yeah.
But my striking team is primarily a striking team, so we're staying here. You know, stay there. But all of a sudden, if your coach is, let's say, one of the best kickboxers in the country, and you're fighting one of the best wrestlers in the country, you should probably stick with your coach, but find a wrestling coach who can kind of mimic what you're going to face. You know, so I think it's important to to know what you're coming up against, and then be ready for it, which is one of those things that most people don't put enough time into, right? So find out what you're coming up against, and that's the hardest part, because it's like a lot of people don't want to pursue the negative. Right? Because I remember I learned this lesson in martial arts because I was a Muay Thai guy, and I was kicking the crap out of everyone in the beginning. First 3 fights undefeated, just running through them. And then I fought a sick wrestler, one of the best wrestlers in my weight division at the time in Canada. And immediately I hit him with a leg kick, boom! And first thing he did was scoop right in, gave me a double leg, put me on my ass. You know what I mean? Right away.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's first thing,
unforeseen.
instinctively.
You're like, whoa,
yeah, and I'd never trained with anybody that good of a wrestler. I mean, sometimes I did, but not enough. So I knew what to do to a certain level. You know, do this, do that, and I was able to kind of sweep him and go on top.
You were playing his game at that
Exactly, but to me, I'm like, okay, I'm on top. Let me rain down this thunder. And he put me in a triangle choke, and before I knew it, I was like, yeah! I'm like, holy shit, I can't breathe. I had to tap out. That was my 4th fight. I lost via triangle choke, right? I was like, holy shit, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah.
Because I didn't know, huh?
You're just dumbfounded.
Of course, because I didn't know that transitional element of going from wrestling to BJJ and then flowing through a number of submissions, and this guy goes out of this submission. What other? I didn't know that. And it's a tough time. It's a tough thing to run into in the heat of battle, because I've seen it happen to a lot of people, but I never thought it would happen to me at that point. And from that point on, I totally changed the way I train. But it's interesting because what happens is you freeze, and then you don't know what to do. But everything is happening at such a high level of intensity and speed that you don't have time to actually rationally think. Your mind is looking in your your directory for what to do, and it's not there because guess what? You've never seen a triangle choke. You've never seen a guy transition from a kimura into this, into that. You've never seen it.
It's on foreign territory.
It's foreign territory. So as far as you're concerned, the guy's holding your arm. It's not a submission attempt. You're just like, oh, he's got my arm. Let me do this. You know, you make one wrong move and it's cranked. And you're like, holy shit, that hurts. You come out of that and you're like, okay, that was close. Boom, you're in a triangle choke. And you're like, holy shit, like, how did this happen?
Like, I was trying to get out of this, and then he's already there.
He's in that, you know, and now you're stuck, and before you know it, because you don't know what to deal with, okay, alleviate the pressure, do this, posture up, pull his hips in, start. You don't know any of that. You just, like, you start to struggle, and then lo and behold, he's cinched the thing in, and you're done.
You're on survivor mode at that
Exactly, you know, and I realize it's like you have to know what to do.
Yeah,
you know, and that's usually the biggest problem is people don't find out what they suck at and add it into what they have. So to kind of answer the question more directly, a mixture of both is good. You have to know what you're going up against and then go prepare for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you need to find outside help, get it. When you don't need to, don't get it because it's a waste of time.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's a really good way of answering that.
Yeah.
And as well understanding what the game plan looks like. Right? That's huge. And so like everyone's favorite question to ask, what's your game plan? What are you doing? What does your camp look like?
100%,
right?
man.
You really put that in a beautiful way and just saying, you know what? If there's something they do that they specialize in, know how to combat it.
You have to deal with that first.
Yeah.
That's going to be your biggest problem, right? It's like the reason, let's say like a GSP was hard to beat was because he was able to learn enough knowledge to be able to be a master of different things based on how he trains for that 12 to 8 weeks. That was all it is. If he needed to be a takedown guy and a supreme wrestler, he'd become that. He was able to out wrestle like a Josh Koscheck. But if he needed to be a striker, he'd become that as well. And he knocked a couple guys out, you know. So that's the difference between great fighters, you know, and mediocre fighters. They know how to bring in the elements they need and when not to go outside help. Because sometimes, you know, you might say, oh, I'm fighting in the UFC now. I should go to a bigger camp. Well, why? You know, more importantly, who do you know there? You know, are you going to run into people who are going to say, oh, this kid's in the UFC. I need to earn my stripes off of him. And they're going to go hard on you at the wrong time. You know, who knows what you're running yourself into. You know what I mean? Exactly. And people don't consider that, you know, because I've seen people do that where they make it to a significantly higher level of competition. Then they go to another gym where they don't have the comfort level. They don't have a great coach. They don't have the same level of training partners. You're dealing with hostile training partners. They're not hostile because they hate you, but they don't know who you are.
Yeah.
They don't know who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're a stranger. So why am I going to be supremely kind to you or show up and train with you during off times or anything if I don't know you like that?
And I find for anyone who's ever competed in any martial art, and I find this goes for any sport in general, is like we all know what it feels and felt like when you walk into a gym,
of course,
or there's a guy that walks into the gym, and either they're gonna go super hard to try and prove themselves, or they're gonna go so light and they're gonna sneak up on you over the days and they're gonna go to that level. Like it's
awkward little transitional phase, you know. And then and then now imagine doing that at the high level. Like this is all you're doing, and you're doing this to get like a $30,000 payday. And now you don't know these people, and one of them might kick you in the knee, and now you can't fight. Yeah. It's so tricky, right? So I think it's important to get the people who you know can help you, and then be clear about what you're doing.
And you know what? It just speaks volumes when you put it that way, because there's this element of realizing that who got you, who helped you get there
That's
in the
important,
first
man.
place.
Yeah.
And now when you're there, when you got a taste of fame, when you got this sense of, you know, getting your hand raised multiple times, well, look back on who your team is.
100%, man.
Huge shout out to the guys over at LSS with, you know, KB and Tanner Moser and those guys, where like you look at their coaches with Jeff, and you look at Cadro, and like those guys have cultivated that, and they do a damn good job. Where, you know, Tanner's now, you know, he's had a couple fights on the UFC, but he's still there. He's still with the squad.
Yeah.
And I think that's just beautiful to see.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great. And it's one of those things where he should stay with those guys. And even if he makes a jump to another camp temporarily, he needs those guys in his corner when he fights because they know him the best. You know, another guy who may have coached you for the last 8 weeks won't know how you react in a combat situation. Yeah. You know, where you may look hurt to other people, the guys who know you will be like, okay, he's getting ready to kill. You know, and other guys may throw in the towel, or they may give you the wrong advice. Oh man, pull back, do this. And whereas the guy who knows you be like, okay, you're awake now. Let's jump in and put this and that together and let's do it. And then you go and you do it and it works, you know? So there's something to be said about people who know you well.
And I'll give you, it's really personal and it's neat because it goes back to when KB got his hand raised when he won the middleweight title, right? This was his last fight.
Sick fight.
And yeah, it was amazing.
I was
And
commentating that fight. Sick
I
fight.
was in the corner there, and this was after a while,
Yes,
especially
you
when
were.
KB brought his reign back to fighting full-time professionally.
Yep.
And Pedro's right there beside me. And it's like, this was voiced out the third round, the fourth round, very specifically the fifth round.
Right.
And I just kept hearing Pedro say this one thing.
Yeah.
And mind you, going back to what you said, that chemistry you build with your coach
Oh,
and even
100%,
someone who
man.
knows you,
Who knows you
even this
100%, yeah.
one word that ends up getting said will translate on a whole other level.
Everything, man.
Because you know what it means. You know how
Yeah.
much that means.
Yeah.
Pedro just keeps saying to KB while he's like, popping out that jab and being very careful,
Right.
to like keep the distance. And he's just like, KB, discipline. Discipline, KB.
Right.
Discipline, right?
Yeah.
But KB knew.
Yeah, they both know what
that
it means.
word meant.
Everyone else would know.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, anyone can take that in any context
Yeah.
they like, but KB knew that, okay, discipline. I gotta stay
Between the
sharp.
two of them, yeah.
I gotta keep my distance.
Yeah.
My coach sees it from a whole other lens.
Right.
And, I just felt like it was a movie moment,
Yeah,
right? Like,
man.
and just everyone in the background. But again, that just backs up your reason.
100%, man. That synergy is important. Like, and even your coach, when you come back with some new skills, he could actually figure out how to make them better. Oh shit, this guy's got a great uppercut now. Let's use uppercut to left hook combos. Let's use this. Let's do different setups now. For the things you're good at. You got great knees. Now you can do uppercuts as well. Get in here, move around. Let's mix it up. Let's do some more boxing. Yeah, it's so profound when someone knows you, right? So definitely, I think you should be able to take things where you can get them, but to bring them back home, man. Stay with your crew.
Love that, man.
Yeah.
It's, to bring it back to the other flip of the coin. For me, it's really tough. It's something that I'm still trying to work on is assigning someone or something as a mentor and then figuring out, okay, well, if someone's a mentor in the capacity of the space of, optimizing my business and me as a person,
Right.
what do I need to check off the box? And obviously, like, in a martial arts setting, it's very easy. You walk
Very
in the
easy.
dojo, there's coach, there's
Yeah,
mentor.
the main
Or,
guy.
It's so easy to just
Yeah.
determine who that is, right?
Yeah.
And in a business setting, just from your perspective, you already talked about having a mentor.
Yeah.
For other people, maybe similar in my shoes, Muay Thai, who struggle to ask or find or search for that. What are some things that you find were important or are important to ask yourself?
Yeah.
Or even someone you're about to consider
Right.
a mentor in your life when it's really now going to be on that deeper level for your life and business?
You have to be. It's all a deep dive into your weaknesses. Like, what do you suck at? What's different is a lot of people.
So,
Yeah. A
what
lot
are
of people
you
like to. What are you bad at? And then go find the guy who can help you with that. And secondly, because there's two main things: what do you suck at? What do you need help with? Who is on a similar journey to you? You know what I mean? Who's the guy you want to be at a certain age? So you say, for example, when you're 50, who do you want to be? And you find a guy like that, he'll probably get you there. Because if you want to be like him, he'll know what the journey looks like from wherever you are. Let's say you're 28 and you want to be like this guy at 50. If you find the right guy, he'll get you there at 50. You just have to listen to the guy because he's been through a similar journey. The problem is a lot of the time it's hard to admit you suck at something.
Yeah.
Right? Because then it's like you run the risk of going into a negative space. Right, because now you can, if you admit you suck at something, then you run the risk of starting saying, "Man, I'm a loser at this," and then getting stuck in a negative cycle. Versus saying, "Man, I need someone who knows how they're doing in like business administration because I provide a great service, but I'm not able to effectively articulate that and then monetize it. But the service is great, and I feel like I'm undercharging." Find a guy who did exactly what you did, who's like 10 years ahead of you, and talk to that guy and say, "Man, it's what he'll probably tell you, like, listen, man, these clients are losers or you're a loser because you're doing this." But I find the toughest thing is most people don't want to get, they don't want to take a beating, right? Because I get the most growth when I get a beating from my mentors. Like, I have a mentor. I've got two great mentors, three actually. My dad's one of them. My dad's like my life mentor. That guy's
awesome.
He's a savage, dude.
Yeah.
But but my other mentors, like business mentors, I've got like a business/life mentor and then a straight business mentor, and they're all great guys. But what I like about them, they'll have an element of what I'm looking for. You know what I mean? And I talk and deal with them within the capacity of that element. Now, one of my mentors, for example, he's helped me straighten out my life because he'll look at your life and he'll go, "Listen, below a certain point, these two areas don't interconnect. But when you pass a certain level, they'll merge, and then you have to have the right people in that part as well. So it's like talking about life partners, for example. Like one of my mentors talks about that a lot, because he goes, listen, there's a certain level where who you're spending a lot of your time with, or who you're dating, who you're married to, doesn't really matter. But if you pass a certain level in your professional career, you now need to be with the right person. Otherwise, that's good, and that's an impossible lesson to learn, because sometimes people are stuck in thinking that, your life partner is supposed to be this based on this other thing that you learned when you were, let's say, 15. But now you're like 30, and you haven't refreshed that knowledge. You still believe in like what you learned when you were 15, like, be in love.
There was no growth there.
There's no growth there, So if you're still chasing the kind of partner or the kind of things that excited you when you were 15 and you're 30, that's problematic. And usually it's a mentorship problem where somebody hasn't gone, listen, for the kind of things you're trying to go for, you have to get rid of that and this because they won't work. So it's like find out what you suck at and find your problem areas, then find people who are good at those things, or find someone who's where you want to be in a certain time period and ask them to help.
Wow.
Yeah. And 9 times out of 10, they'll help you. Because I remember one of my business mentors, he looked at me and he says, I don't think you can do it, man. He's like, yeah, dude, he says you're a loser, man. And I was like, what the fuck do you mean I'm a loser? And he goes, no, I don't mean like you're a loser. Like, and this is one thing I didn't understand until I talked to him. So everybody get a fucking mentor. I didn't understand that being a loser is relative to your potential. It's not like a ubiquitous race with everyone. It's like saying, if you, as Kenny, if you right now could be doing something more productive, but you're not doing it for a good reason. Like, you could say, oh, I could be at work right now. But you say, well, there's this coronavirus thing and work is close. I can't be at work right now. That's a great reason. But if you're not at work today because you felt like sitting at home and fucking around and playing PlayStation or something, then you're being a loser today. Now, you're not necessarily a loser. Good-looking guy, you're tall, you're handsome, you got a lot going on. Yeah. But you can be a loser within the spectrum of who you are and what you could be. Yeah. And I had to learn that from a mentor to go, listen, you could do what you're doing right now for the rest of your life and live a great life. And nobody would question you about it. But who would know you didn't do as much as you could? Like, you would know. Yeah. Because this is not as much as you can do. So you're being a loser right now. And it reframed how I look at things, like, oh, fuck, I am being a bit of a loser.
That is really good point. I'm just in awe, because it makes me realize that if you consider it an L, where you feel like a loser, I feel like the moment that feeling comes in, that's when you should start looking at it as an opportunity to know you can grow. Start somewhere.
Yeah.
To do so.
Exactly.
Right? To be like, hey, I feel like this. And then your mentor comes in and is like, great. Now you know it needs to be fixed.
Yeah, and then fix it.
Right?
And he can help you fix it too.
If you lost and got taken down and you felt like a loser and you did lose, well, now you know what needs to be fixed.
Still.
It's the same thing in a fight.
It's the same
to this,
position. Yeah, exactly.
Right?
It's exactly the same as fighting.
It's awesome. Because then you realize, you recognize. And I find, when ego gets in the way and you go, oh, no. And you don't want to face it. You don't want to face it. But when you come to face value and realize,
face to face with it, man,
it needs to be fixed. And it's it's your partner in life.
Everything.
All of that. It gets
everything.
They tell you because they're with you for a majority of the amount of time, and until you face it and go, okay, you know what, I do have to fix this. You're right, this is stemming from these problems or problem I've had that I'm not addressing until now.
Exactly.
It's bleeding into relationships,
everything else,
career.
Man, everything else, so it was like mentorship is important, man, and like, get the right person, address your weaknesses, you have to attack your weaknesses, man, and you have to get into a deep conversation with yourself about what you're missing, and these are all elements I learned in fighting, because I remember I was like North American level type of ass kicking machine. I was great as a Muay Thai guy, and I always avoided MMA. Under the disguise of saying, I don't like all that wrestling nonsense, man.
I'm good with just my specialty.
And I was like, well, I don't even want to get on the ground. That's stupid. But the truth I wasn't confronting was I wasn't good at it. It was foreign to me. That's why I didn't do it. That was the real truth. Until eventually, I decided just like, you know what, man? I was honest with myself. I was like, the only reason I don't do it is because I suck at it. And even then I was like, and what good are you as a fighter if you can't fight in all of the possible elements that could come? Like, I'm a great Muay Thai fighter, but what happens if a guy was to throw me on the ground? Because in that particular scenario, in every kind of element I'd learned, they stand you back up. You sweep a guy, boom, fight stops, and I was like, What if a guy in a fight was able to fall on top of me and he kind of knew how to stay there? He wasn't the best grappler in the world, but he kind of knew to go, okay, if the guy tries to scooch out, just pull his hips back in and throw a punch.
Yeah.
You know? What if he knows that much? He doesn't know like submissions, but he knows to go. He's moving to the left, go that way and punch. He's moving to the right, go that way and punch. I'd be in a shitload of trouble, man.
Yeah.
Especially if there was no one there to say, hey, get off of him and help me.
I'm gonna put him in my corner.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Where's my mentor?
Yeah, none of that, you know? So I looked at it, I was like, yeah, I guess I have to confront this MMA thing. And I got into it, you know?
And I love that. At the end of the day, when you realize that you can have the whole team behind your back, and it's why I love independent sports at the end of the day. You have your whole team behind your back, you have everyone who got you to where you are, but at the end of the day, it's up to you to make that change. It's up to you to overcome that adversity, fight or flight, man. Get in there, get your hands dirty. Yeah. Right?
And it's the same in business, mind you. Because at the end of the day, especially when you want to be an entrepreneur, it all falls in your head. Because really, like, the difference between an entrepreneur and an employee, an entrepreneur is in charge of all things. Employee just, they deal with what they're delegated with. They specialize. Right? So it comes back to what we're talking about, specialization. They specialize. So you say, okay, this guy's the best graphic designer and I run an ad agency. So I need the best graphic designer. Just sits there and all he does is graphic design. I need a copywriter. All he does is copywriting. I need, you know, and you get your elements. But those guys, for example, don't actually, if he have to find graphic design work for himself, he wouldn't know how to get it consistently enough to make a living out of it. Yeah. Right? And that's really what an entrepreneur is, to go, okay, how can I get enough to make a living out of this? You know, how can I do enough marketing and provide enough work and do enough of this and do enough of that to balance it all out, make a living out of it, right? And that's ultimately what like fighting taught me. Like single combat sports was like, you can have a team to get you ready for things, but at the end of the day, it falls on your head.
Yeah, can you piece it?
Can you piece it together? Because the striking coach can teach you all the Muay Thai in the world, but if you don't do it, it's not going to help you. You know, so in becoming an entrepreneur, that was a very important step, because I realized, like, okay, listen, you have to get these things done. You know, now I may not have done them to the fullest capacity in the past, you know, but that's where the life lessons came in. Because now it was like, sometimes I look at it and I go, that didn't go too well. You know, I was like, yeah, but like, it's like a sparring day where you get caught a bunch, you know, and you take a couple more punches than you usually do. And you go, oh man, my punch defense sucks today. What was different today? And you say, oh, that guy's a great boxer. You know, he's not trying to set up his kicks with his hands. He's trying to punch you in the face. Yeah. It's a different kind of approach. It's just like, oh, I got to clean up my boxing. You know, so an MMA fighter, actually, I did a lot of boxing and a lot of grappling, wrestling, BJJ, and a lot of Muay Thai. Yeah. You know, so, but as a result, my punching got better. So I could actually box with boxers. Now, I wouldn't beat them up. Yeah. But my whole point wasn't to beat them up. It was to keep up with them. Say, if I could do 5 rounds with a great boxer, come out of it unscathed, I took some heat, but I'm not hurt. Anyone who can't box at that level is going to be in trouble with my hands. Never mind when the kicks and the knees and the elbows coming from the back end. Yeah. You know, and then it translated into entrepreneurship. If you can sell anything, how can you have a hard time selling something you love and you know everything about? Yeah. And that's why I moved into Edmonton Combat League now, because I was like, you know, I love Muay Thai. I love it as a sport. And what do I think is missing in the market? Amateur competition. There's not enough of it, because everybody just wants to, even MMA, everyone wants to become a professional fighter. Yeah. They want to get that money, you know, but then the problem in MMA is people go, well, we don't get paid much at the beginning. It's like, well, yeah, because you don't have much of a background either. Like there was a point in time where a lot of MMA fighters would have had like less than a year of actual training and competition behind them. You know, so they'd come in and do okay, but anytime any one of those type of fighters met a guy with a deep background, for example, someone who did Taekwondo since they were like 15, so they know how to kick and they know basic distancing. Then they did some BJJ and they've done a couple BJJ tournaments, so they know how to aggressively grapple. Then they wrestled a little bit in high school, so they know how to control, you know, staying on their feet or getting back. Those guys would always win, you know, because they had the amateur background in enough of those disciplines to know what to do. Oh, I'm on the ground, do this, push his head here, stand up. I'm standing on my feet. Okay, let me punch and kick. You know,
they can adjust.
And they can adjust.
Every little
because they've been there in some capacity, so they know it. You know, so that's what's like, okay, with this Edmonton Combat League thing, I got to start as an amateur promotion, because that's what's missing. A place where these guys can actually get in there and figure out how to do it, so that when they start demanding money for it, they look great. You know, and they can go, here, I did a bunch of fights here and here and here, and my amateur record is 12-2, and I've got 5 knockouts and a couple of these titles. Here's my highlight reel. And the guy will go, okay, I'll give you like $1,500. You know, and they make great money for their first fight versus showing up and saying, "Oh, I want to fight, and I've trained at this gym for the last 6 years, and what do you have to show?" "Oh, nothing yet. This is gonna be my first like actual outing. Like, I'm gonna give you $200. Like, you take it or you leave it. Because guess what? There's a million guys like that who want to fight, but an actual contender, not a lot, right?"
Yeah. No, I love that, man.
Yeah.
That's a great way of showcasing the reality, the actual, let's say, true grit of what it takes to do all of that. Like for someone to hear that and understand that, okay, I do need to learn. I do need to do all of these elements in order to get there, right? And I want to acknowledge you again, Muay Thai, for providing a service that is so niche initially for amateurs in the Muay Thai space to feel it out.
100%, man.
There, bang it out, make themselves feel like they got the spotlight on them.
Yeah.
To then decide, okay,
can I do this? Yeah. You know?
Going in this?
Am I going in this? You know, right? And that's really what it's about. Like, because once you make that decision and you know, if I find everybody knows what they need to do. The problem is they don't have enough information to make the right decision. So when people come into the gym saying, "I want to be a professional fighter," off the hop, they haven't been given the right amount of information. So far, they've seen the good side. I'm on television, I'm kicking ass, I'm winning, I've got some money, I've got some girls, whatever it is. They see that and they like it.
Yeah.
But because they haven't been in an in-gym environment for the last 6 years, they don't know what it takes to get there. They think you just go learn how to punch and kick and you go kick and you go fight some people and you win. It's like,
not at all.
It works.
Yeah, they don't see everything else that you need to do to get there.
To get there. But now, how I made the connection was, when you talk about being someone who goes and gets paid minimum wage, it's impossible to get paid minimum wage. For example, if you haven't done a requisite amount of learning, you can read and write, you can count, you can, you know what I mean, the basics. So if you haven't done, that's why you notice in our society, people under a certain age just don't work. It's not because we're biased against it, because they don't have enough information and qualifications to do basic services. Yeah. You know? So, and people always miss joining the dots. It's like, listen, when you talk about kindergarten and junior high school and high school, before you even get to university, those are prerequisites to be able to do the bare minimum in life. People may look and say, "Oh, why do we do quadratic equations and Pythagoras, this and that?" It's like, well, it's not because they want you to do dumb shit. It's because when you've learned those things, you'll know enough to be able to make the right decision to go to the next step. Yeah. You may not like quadratic equations and everything, so you're not going to do something mathematically inclined, but you know it because guess what? At some point in time, you're going to have to add up 3 or 4 things that don't quite add up, and there's going to be a missing variable, and you call that x when you do quadratic equations. And you got to figure out what x is. You can do that in life when you have the theoretical knowledge from mathematics, and people do it naturally. They just don't make the connection. They go, "I didn't use any of this shit," and you go, you can do like 8 hours of work and know that you make $20 an hour. So at 8 hours of work, that's about $160. So you can look at that and go, "I should have $160 on this thing." That's because you did enough math at a certain level. And then you see the gaps, right? Yeah. Like, as we come closer to the end of the show here, you really see, if I need to, let's say, make double what I'm making now, and I see someone who's doing a job that represents that, and I'm here, and along the way, before I was here, I got the degree. I got 2 years of industry experience. Well, now what do I need to fill to get to let's say, that point? What blocks do I need to add? That's where simply you look at the qualifications. You look at, okay, I need this many years. I need to know how to do a strategy according to branding. I need to know 100%. Some element of, SAP consulting and the cloud-based software systems to become a tech consultant. 100%.
That's it. But then again, you got to see, again, going back to like finding a mentor, finding people who are senior to you, who can then kind of adjust and tell you, here's what you have.
Fill in the gaps for you.
Here's what you got to do. Here's this certification you can do online to bridge that gap.
Exactly.
Right? And same thing, like business, fighting. It's just awesome the same thing, how man. You can see all that.
It's the same, dude. And that's really some of the message. That's really the message I try to push. Because even when I teach guys, I try and figure out what they do. So I have like realtors, for example. One of my top students is a realtor. He's in real estate. He's not necessarily a realtor. He does property management now. And he got martial arts to a certain degree, but when I took it and related it to what he actually does for a living, he like skyrocketed, because to him, punching a guy was just punching a guy. And I was like, dude, when you sell a house, do you just sell a house? Like, do you just show up and say, it's $100,000, give it to me now? And the guy goes, okay, and gives it to you.
Yeah.
He goes, fuck no, like, it takes time. I got to do this, and I got to do that, and I got to do that, and I got to do that. So, well, how do you expect to punch a guy in the face who's trained not to get punched in the face, trained to punch you anytime you try to punch him, and he's trying to do the same thing to you? How do you expect that you're just going to show up and do this and hit him in the face? And he goes, oh, I guess. And when you put it like that, I go, dude, your jabs and your setups, those are your other elements that you use. Like when you're trying to sell a guy for, let's say $125,000, just for an easy number to work with. Do you start at 125? He goes, well, no, I start like a little bit higher, then we work down. I said, okay, so if you want to punch a guy with the right hand, why do you start with the right?
I love that.
Yeah, and he goes, oh, and you can see the balance click.
Yeah, he's like, oh, I got it.
I get it. And I go, exactly. So if you want to punch him with the right, why don't you show him all the other things besides the right, so that now he's like, and then you hit him with the right.
Yeah.
And he goes, that makes sense. And I go, what do you call that? And he goes, well, selling. I go, exactly. So sell him the attack. And just out of that conversation, I saw him go like, boom.
Yeah.
He took off. Like, because now all of a sudden he was like thinking martial arts and what he understood.
He's
right?
looking at it strategically now.
Strategically.
He's not just throwing punches.
He's not just throwing shit. Exactly.
Hoping one thing lands.
Yeah. He's putting, and it made more sense to him because I simply had equated it to something he understood at a high level, right? Because now all of a sudden he's applying it all the same way. You know what I mean? I was like, yeah, okay, well, and I remember one time we're talking about saying, well, after you get the commitment for the guy to say I'm buying this house, so he goes, well, no, dude, like you still have to get approved and this, and we got to look at the house and do like inspections and do all these things. I was like, exactly. So just because you can hit a guy with the right hand doesn't mean you're winning that fight. You got to do a bunch more. There's way more work to be done.
This is why I know you're such a class act, man. You're able to look at someone and be like, what do you do again? What is your life outside of this? Okay, let me piece it together. Let me make this have
let me
sense
make you
to
understand it. And,
right?
and you got it, dude. Like, the guy's a killer now. He's solid. Send him anywhere. He puts it together.
That's class.
And he's not even a professional fighter or has a high-level amateur background. He did, like, one amateur fight, but he didn't need to do anymore because guess what? He did a fight. He lost all the weight to do it. Now, and this is what's important. I remember talking to him, and I said, well, he was a bigger guy, and I said to him, he was like, I don't lift weights because I just fight, and I was like, I looked at him, I was like, I could tell you don't lift weights, I see it, and it hit him. I was like, I tell you don't lift weights, and it hit him, and then he started working out more, and he got a trainer and everything. And then I was like, dude, let's fight. Let's do it at 180 pounds. I think it was 220 pounds at the time. So this guy actually, from the time I met him, lost about 60 to 70 pounds. Did a fight. He lost a fight.
Sorry, is this a realtor?
Yeah, he's a real estate guy.
That's awesome.
The same guy.
Wow.
And he lost a fuck ton of weight, and then he lost the fight though. But that wasn't the point. After losing that fight, his weight stayed down. He was in great shape. His confidence went through the roof. He was able to teach all these other kids all the elements of fighting, and he actually became an instructor at the gym I used to own. So just that one experience, getting ready for one fight that he lost. He didn't ever fight again because he never really wanted to, but the experience taught him so many profound life lessons. It changed his life. And that's really what martial arts does when you engage with it.
I love that, man.
It was phenomenal.
I love that.
I love it. It's one of my favorite stories.
As we come to the conclusion here, I swear I could talk to you all day, brother.
Let's
It's
do
awesome. I want to know. We ask every guest this,
Yeah.
and I want to ask you is essentially based off everything you said. If there's anything that you haven't mentioned any other way, or you want to repeat it, now would be the chance based off of this question I have for you.
Right.
What is your definition of what it takes to be on the second floor? And what we mean by that is metaphorically, right? When it comes to the reason why we wanted you on the show, the reason why we find your whole thought process is so interesting.
Thank
because
you,
you look at life as progression.
It is progression.
You are someone 100%. I acknowledge you tenfold, where you've taken every piece of your life and you see how it all relates to one another.
It does.
Even when you're coaching someone, you're going to the extent of realizing other components of themselves that's going to make them understand. So from your perspective now in this framework, what is it, Muay Thai, that you find someone needs to know and to understand in order for them to take it to the next level?
You have to be willing to go through the first floor to get to the second floor. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. So most people don't want to go to the second floor, to the first floor. They want to go right to the second floor. So even if you caught in an elevator at the ground floor, you would have to start there and get in the elevator at the ground floor to get to the second floor. And I find that's what a lot of people don't want to go through. They want to start at the second floor, right?
Yeah. Wow.
And it's the same as we talk about when we're talking about being a service provider. A lot of people will go, I want to do this, and start there. And it's like, well, it's not where you start. You know, because even in life, we don't start as adults and just get in there and start working. You start as a kid. You know, so it's like to get to the second floor, you have to be willing to earn your dues and work your way through the first floor effectively and get to the second floor. Like a video game. I remember I did a talk and I used a video game analogy. The only way to succeed in the second floor is to bring all the knowledge you gained in the first floor. Because once you get to the second floor, you know enough to never need to go down to the first floor. You can always start from the second floor now. You know? So you're set. It's like saying people who win the lottery, they usually go broke in a short time because they don't know how to deal with that much money.
Yeah.
Whereas when a guy earns even just $1 million over the course of X amount of time, he knows how to make $1 million now. So even if he lost it all, he could turn on to make it all again because he knows the formula and he's also experienced the formula. It's easy to do, you know, and not get into the second floor. It's like you have to get through the first, master the first floor, so that even if you fall, you know, from the third floor to the second floor, you know, you'll be able to stand up and not need to go to the first floor.
Yeah.
When you start at the second floor.
You built that base.
You have the foundation built already, you know. So go through the first floor. And the thing is, you need to figure out what your first floor is. And most people can't tell you what it is. You have to get in there and dive deep and figure out what it is and then master that shit.
Before you build the stairs, baby.
Yeah, exactly, dude. And once you get to the second floor, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Love it, man.
Oh, yeah.
That's
We're having
fantastic.
a lot of fun on the second floor.
Well, my man, I've had a lot of fun with you on the second floor,
thank
brother.
you, man. I love being on the second floor.
I want to know, brother, for everyone who's listening to this, who's,
Yeah.
you know, taking notes, taking mental notes,
Yeah.
appreciated the time you've had with us.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you having me.
Where can we connect with you? Where can our audience potentially connect with you or find you or continue following your journey in life?
Get at me on Instagram, man. Mukai_Maromo. You know, I'm open to questions. Hit me up. Ask me anything. I'm always down to answer. If you ask me a stupid question, I'll hit you with some bullshit answers. So don't ask stupid questions.
Not even reply.
Yeah, I'll reply. I'll reply with some gnarly shit, man. Don't do stupid questions. People say there's no such thing as there are stupid questions. Don't ask them. You know, so yeah, that's the best way.
People are gonna be scared now. They're gonna be you're gonna see typing, and then you're gonna be like, "Why did it disappear?" They're gonna see typing.
Yeah, I hope so because a lot of people wasted their own time to ask you stupid questions, man.
I think we got to do a whole other episode on that.
Yeah, we should, man. Hell yeah. But yeah, at Mukai Maromo, MUKAI_MAROMO.
Awesome, brother. You know what? It's been a fantastic time
Thank
having
you, man.
on here, man.
Yeah.
You know, to wrap it up, we like to always say, this has been a huge pleasure to have Mukai Maromo on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, as we always do, we talk about how to survive, how to thrive, and keep the good vibes going in life and business.
Yes, I love it.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you, brother.
That's a wrap, man.
Boom.